George, the whole world's waiting. Make a move.
Bishop to King's Rook 5.
Checkmate.
You know, Preston, I was just telling you the other day how we don't have enough bad news in this community, and what do you know? An article drops today doing just that. Oh man.
Here's the thing about the article, okay? The article, there is nothing new in the article.
That is not true. That is absolutely not true.
There's nothing new in the article. It's more of a very serious confirmation of all the stuff we kind of knew, but we didn't know how fucking... I mean, I guess there's degrees of seriousness. Like, for instance, I'm pulling this out. Like, the article is long. It's very comprehensive. It's a very good summary of everything that's fucking happened in the past goddamn 10 years. Okay? It's a brilliant, in-depth article. I couldn't believe that, he got that much information out of George, because it's so hard to get stuff out of George. But the thing is, it's stuff we kind of knew. So, for example, like the feud between George and Ryan Condal. We knew that existed. We knew that there was that.
But not to the extent it goes into.
We didn't know it was as serious. Like, there was a lot of speculation on how serious it was. And this is confirming, like, oh shit, that's really serious. Like remember when that video came out of somebody brought up like House of the Dragon, and then George immediately changed subjects to Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I was like, oh crap, I was like, that's seriously throwing shade on Ryan Condal. I didn't realize how serious it was, and that's all subtext, but this is fucking text. This is fucking straight up text. He fucking says it. Yeah.
People were hitting me up saying, you guys got to get on this now. Strike while the iron is hot. No. We wanted to sit on this for a bit before going into it. I know the other boring channels needed to upload this immediately for the clicks, but I feel like we're more connected to the series having done this for 10 plus years. And I don't know, this needed a bit of time and patience and nuance than just reacting immediately as it came out. So yeah. Let's get into it. James Hibberd, he does an amazing job with this article. And
by the way, I mean, the other thing, James Hibberd's work here is impeccable. But it's funny that it's funny how his emotions are like bleed into the article so much.
James Hibberd has a very personal relationship with not only like, I wouldn't say George, but like the series in general. I read
he's interviewed him so many times.
Well, that, and I've also read his book, Fire Cannot Kill the Dragon, the making of the show. And granted, he didn't go as in-depth into that book about the making of the show as I wanted him to. His main focus in that book was not making Dave and Dan look like assholes. Because but it's a decent book about the making of the show nonetheless, and there's a lot of like great tidbits there too. But he starts this article by basically saying, in many ways, Martin looks the same as ever. He's sharp and engaging. His voice is vibrant, which is not what I've heard from a lot of people who have seen George in person in the last couple of months. Yet his beard has thinned, and he has a tougher time walking. He's also lost weight. But contrary to morbid online speculation, this isn't due to any health issues. So,
well, it's due to Ozempic. It's an open secret that like George is on Ozempic.
That woman, Hefe Kennedy.
I'm surprised he didn't mention that. Yeah, well, I'm surprised he didn't mention it.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. James Hibberd goes out of his way to make sure no one looks like an asshole or weird.
Yeah.
But Hefe Kennedy, who was with George at Bubonicon 2025, basically said like, yeah, he's on Ozempic. So, which, hey man, look. I know some people who are on it. It's given them like a new lease on life. There's a pickup in their step, and we don't know the health side effects of it long term, but short term takes weight off your joints. You eat less, which is great. So yeah, man, I'm sure he's feeling much better.
A lot of diabetic issues. I mean, it's a diabetic, it affects blood sugar levels and stuff like that. But yeah.
But George here, of course, starts off very, the article starts off very sad. So George goes into it and says, I never thought I'd live to be 77, Martin says. I'm old, so I have some old people stuff. My lower back hurts sometimes. I don't like to stand around, but I feel okay. Maybe you should make that your headline. George R. Martin is not dying. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Rob, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, but like the Robert Redford stuff really kind of struck me. That really hit me when I read all that. And I was like, oh God. Robert Redford was, of course, like larger than life actor, somebody that George R. R. Martin like has been seeing on TV forever. He has this meta scene in Dark Winds.
Oh,
with
yeah.
him,
No, I know about I told you about this. Yeah.
Right, where Robert Redford says to him,
George,
"It's
make
your
a move."
George," and George, yeah. And then Robert Redford dies. And that scene with George R. R. Martin is the last thing Robert Redford ever filmed.
I didn't know.
Okay? Yeah. And so, like, well, can you imagine, like for someone like George R. R. Martin, and keep in mind, even for someone like us, Robert Redford's just a little before my time. But still, Robert Redford is larger than life. Robert Redford is a bit before your time, but he's still larger than life. For younger people, maybe he's not so huge. He's a guy that occasionally appeared in some Marvel movies, but like to I don't know, to George R. R. Martin, it's Robert fucking Redford, and it's like, oh my God, he filmed his last scene with me and then died. Yeah, that's got to hit him.
Well,
I mean, he mentions that it hits him in the article.
he talked about that scene briefly, how he didn't really want to do it, and then he was convinced to do it. But the article goes on. Martin wanted to build an empire and did. Yet productive is the last word on any Thrones fans would use to describe him. The author's worry that he wouldn't be able to finish Winds of Winter has borne out to a staggering degree. His tortured inability to finish the book, George, quote, as online hordes regularly chide, is almost as impressive in its way as his success at doing everything else. That's true. They go into discussing Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and George says about that, he goes, "The show is meant to be a very different type," says Martin, who served as co-creator and executive producer. "It turned out very well, and I'm very happy with season 1. The casting was a home run. Showrunner Ira Parker is terrific, and seems to have the same priorities I do. He's trying to do something that's very true to the characters." Are we placing bets at how long this honeymoon lasts, like on Polymarket? Because that's something he said about Ryan Condal, and, well, look how that turned out.
Yeah.
The article continues, "When the project was announced 2 years ago, HBO's press release suggested the series would serve as Martin's return to screenwriting, but he still hasn't written an episode of TV since season 4 of Thrones. Quote here, "There's always been the possibility of me writing on the show," he says, "but then things happen and suddenly I have other priorities." That's a shame. I would love for him to have written an episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Maybe we would have gotten less gross out poop humor, but who knows? Who knows? I watched your non-spoiler review, by the way, and you kind of touched on it briefly, but man, going back and watching it again, I fucking hated that so much. And they do it at the most randomest times when you don't want it to be there.
Yes. At very important times, yes.
George goes in.
I mean, it's like how I feel about that. It's like how I feel about that rat at the end of The Departed, you know? Like, like everyone had that rat been at any other time, maybe I would have forgotten about it. But the fact that it's at the very end, now everyone just like, it's the last thing everyone remembers is this stupid rat. Well, it's the same with some of these scenes from Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I think it was a big mistake. But yeah.
The article continues here. Martin is nonetheless highly creatively involved. On Night and Dragon, Martin initially convened with a writing summit in Santa Fe.
By the way, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I love James Hibbard's like articles. He does fucking great work. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, in all of his articles, he calls the things that like he refers to the shows, he calls them things that other people don't call it. Like they don't call it. Like no one calls House of the Dragon, and he'll continue to call it dragon in an article. And it's like no one, 0 people on this planet call House of the Dragon. Like, nobody. They would call it, or I could see somebody calling it House, but like they would never call it Dragon. So he does the same, I think, with Night of the Seven Kingdoms. He calls it Night. And it's like, no one's going to call it that. Nobody. Like, people are calling it Dunk and Egg or, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but like no one calls it Night.
Gotcha.
Like,
Because
it's just
for a second
kinda-
there, I
kinda
was like,
weird.
dragon. I'm like, okay. But the article here continues. Martin is nonetheless highly creatively involved. On Knight and Dragon, Martin initially convened a writing summit in Santa Fe to help figure out the series. So, something he did with Ryan Condal and I guess Ira Parker. He says here, I bring the showrunner together with 4 or 5 writers that I know. Some are TV writers, some are fantasy novelists who really know the world, and we assemble for a week. He says, Parker called the summit one of the most fun, creative weeks I've ever had in my whole career, and notes that while writing the episodes, George was there every step of the way. He's been lovely. I think of him as a friend now, which is great. Like, you want this kind of dedication with the guy whose series you're adapting. The article continues, At the end of the day, we are Game of Thrones without all the stuff. Parker says, we have one of the ingredients, 2 unusual characters like Arya and the Hound or Brienne and Podrick who are paired together having conversations. I hope that's what made Thrones work. It's a big part of what was in it for me. Which, okay. Season 1 is faithful to Martin's debut Dunk and Egg tale. I was actually thinking about this based off your review and me.
This is the thing is everybody, all these reviews that are going out around saying that like Night of the Seven Kingdoms is faithful. It's like, it's not the full story.
Here's the thing. It's about as faithful as Season 1 of Game of Thrones was. There are some changes. There are some things here and there that work, some that don't. But it's not bad. It's not... It's a
good question.
It's not
That's a really good question. What's more faithful?
It's not Aragon bad. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Aragon based off the
Yeah, I've seen Aragon.
Aragon is fucking terrible. That is a dog shit adaptation of a novel. It's not Aragon bad, but I wouldn't say this is bad. However, I say this to you and also the audience. Keep in mind that Press and I did not get screeners. We emailed HBO for screeners. We did not get screeners. I know someone who knows someone that got us the show. That being said, be aware of these YouTubers, often very big YouTubers, who need to keep saying nice things to continue getting screeners. That's how that works.
Screeners. Right.
Like Eckhart's Ladder was not able to get any more Star Wars stuff after his review of Ahsoka was less than desirable for Disney. He even talks about this.
That's right.
So, but
right, like keep in mind that Carmine, look, Carmine and I, we each have our faults, and together we have our faults. Okay, but one thing that you will never ever have us come out of our mouths is like an opinion that is not true. Like these are our real opinions on things, and we're not gonna fluff something up and say it's better than it is, and we're not gonna trash something and say it's worse than it is. Okay, like this is what we honestly, authentically believe. And so faults and all, warts and all, like Carmine and I, we do our best to be as authentic and real as we can. And so our reviews of Another Seven Kingdoms and our opinions on that are real.
So the article here continues. There is, however, one potential problem for the show's future. The big issue is that I have only written 3 novellas, and I have a lot more stories about Dunk and Egg in my fucking head, Martin says, looking a bit shamefaced. I got to get them down on paper. I began writing 2 at various points in the past year. One is set in Winterfell, and one is set in the Riverlands. So, Village Hero and She-Wolves.
Yeah, we're talking about the Village Hero and the She-Wolves of Winterfell, yes. Yeah.
Oh, George, I say, not again.
That's the thing. That's what I'm talking. There's so much of that in the article because he's like, I've heard, like he interviewed like George 10 years ago. And then he's like, he says he's having like fucking deja vu. Like he's saying the same exact fucking shit that he said 10 years ago and nothing's fucking changed. Ugh. Yeah.
I asked Elio about this, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say what Elio said to me privately. I would love to quote him, but yeah, like, man, George basically loves having written stuff, but not really, writing, from what it sounds like.
Well, he gets to that in this article, the Frank Herbert talk, yeah.
One previously reported idea is based on Dragon's, I see what you mean, seafaring character, the Sea Snake.
Right?
This development has quietly shifted from a live-action project to animated to keep costs down. Another is based on King Aegon Targaryen's conquest of Westeros and is being developed by HBO as a possible drama series and by Warner Brothers film team as a mammoth Dune-size feature film. So this was the other big news, is that the Aegon thing, this is what I was initially confused about, because people kept saying the Aegon thing was going to be a show. I remember it being announced as like a movie, but I guess they're going back and forth on it being a show or a movie. I think it should be a movie, because holy shit. Like, why would you stretch this out? And here's another...
Well, I mean, because HBO is a streaming service that relies on monthly subscriptions.
That's true. And here's where it gets very spicy. The one idea is an offspring of the most intriguing of all post-Thrones pitches, the scrap Jon Snow sequel. Martin has long resisted sequels to Thrones because the ending of his Ice and Fire books is not going to align with the show, and he wants to avoid further canonizing Thrones' controversial ending. This is something James is saying, not George. I want to hear it from George, even though he hasn't written his own yet. The book's ending is going to be significantly different, Martin says. Some characters who are alive in my books are going to be dead in the show, and vice versa. Who? Martin figured Jon, played by Kit Harington in Thrones, would be the safest character for a sequel since he was exiled north of the Wall in the series finale, and picking up his story wouldn't need to include revealing what happened to other major characters down south. So I think what the implication here is that it sounds like Jon Snow will be safe in the books as well, and that any sequel series with his involvement, he would be completely okay with them doing, and not, he would be completely okay with them doing any sequel series with Jon, but not including characters, like Bran and Arya and Sansa and so on and so forth, because I guess he hasn't figured out those characters yet, but I guess he's okay with them doing something with Jon because Jon is safe, I guess, until the end?
It's interesting because you could take it like, okay, if George is totally fine with a Jon Snow sequel with him north of the Wall or him going off somewhere else, then the ending of Game of Thrones really was the ending for Jon, that he like went off to go north of the Wall to live with the wildlings, which doesn't not feel like a George ending, but like it's it's interesting that he kind of just that's just kind of
this here I didn't know, and it's very Harrison Ford of Kit Harington to say. So the article continues, the Hollywood Reporter broke the news of the development in 2022, but held back story details to protect against spoilers. Harrington, working with 2 writers from the drama series Gunpowder, was interested in mapping out a tale of Jon Snow living alone as a broken man with PTSD. Having chased off his direwolf Ghost and thrown away his sword Longclaw, Jon spent his time building cabins and burning them back down again. Harrington also wanted Jon to die and to avoid being a hero. So basically, it's what Harrison Ford wants for Han Solo. He finally got it. But
Han Solo,
the story echoed, in some respects, Harrington's personal struggles, entering rehab following an intense shooting experience on Thrones. I went through some mental health difficulties, the actor said. I think it was directly due to the nature of the show. HBO found the broken Jon Snow idea too much of a bummer and eventually pushed it aside. Yet in recent days, I haven't seen this, sources say a new writer...
Kwok Dong Tran?
Sure. So sources say this new writer has come aboard to revive the sequel idea. While the story is being fleshed out, one possibility is shifting the drama to the Mediterranean-like land of Essos and adding another hugely popular legacy character, Arya Stark. No. I'm okay.
Yeah, that was really interesting too, that they were like, okay, we want to involve as few Game of Thrones characters as possible because we don't want to like mess with the world George hasn't finished yet. So we're just going to use Arya in Essos. Like, I guess she went the other way, went all the way around the world and ended up in Essos. And then we just, we can just focus on Arya.
You know for a fucking fact that one of the things that was left hanging with her storyline is the Faceless Man stuff. Her just walking away and utilizing their power, killing. I mean, she was not supposed to kill Walder Frey. Like, she killed Meryn Trent, and she wasn't supposed to do that, and they punished her for it. So I would imagine, this is my idea of what they're probably going to do with an Arya thing. I imagine she's sailing west of Westeros. Somehow the Faceless Men find her, or maybe one of them is a member of her crew, and they try to kill her, and like she realizes, oh, it's a Faceless Men assassin. I survived this one. I got to go over there. So she stops sailing west, goes east, and tries to figure out what the fuck is going on with them, and maybe I don't know. That's That's what I could imagine her doing. Because there's no shot they're going to have her.
Or she goes around the world and then she's just on the run. She's constantly on the run in every episode that Faithful Spin are after.
But how
her.
fun would that be? Like, Arya went from being one of my favorite characters to just being kind of annoying. I don't know. Like, the shit-eating grin was just her being Wolverine.
Yeah, the shit-eating grin Arya is when she hits that moment. It's hard to like.
It's hard to take her seriously. I don't know. It was too much like of a power creep for me, which is the best way to describe it. But this is very early development. However, HBO is naturally being quite cautious about handling this one. Good, thank God. We are interested and excited of the prospect of the sequel, but also keenly aware of how high the bar of execution needs to be, one insider says. No actors are yet on board.
So yeah, but it's still in consideration. So like Jon Snow sequel, dead. Arya sequel, still alive.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No actors are
Crazy,
on board
right?
yet, and signing Harrington in particular would prove quite difficult. Just recently, the actor declared he doesn't want to go anywhere near Jon Snow again. Martin says he cannot confirm or comment on projects in development. None of the titles is as sensitive, however, as Martin discussing a show that everybody already knows about, House of the Dragon. Here we go. I have an ego, Martin once said. Having interviewed Martin nearly a dozen times in the last year, this quote stuck to me. Nearly all creators have an ego, often massive ones, but they're rarely so forthright about it. That's true. I like that about George. Martin has made something else consistently clear. He believes book adaptations, not just his own, should be as faithful as possible. So, real quick, George has done about like 5 interviews or 5 Comic-Con appearances in the last 5 months. And almost every single time people reach out to me telling me they went, and almost every single time he says the same thing. These fucking adaptations never adapt the book correctly. That's a quote from one of them. So this is something
it's on his mind.
Constantly.
It's on his fucking mind constantly. Mm-hmm. This is like the weird closeted like those weird closeted guys that are that are constantly being like, we gotta stop the gay people, and you're like, okay, why is this on your mind so much? Oh, because you're gay. Like, it's like, why is the adaptation thing like constantly on George's mind
because he's gay.
It's fucking him up
right.
in his actual professional life.
Right,
like,
right.
He just
the article continues, Warner Brothers may legally own Westeros, but the world is still Martin's creation, and he understandably wants to feel respected and involved. This is actually something I wanted to ask Elio in our interview with him, because Elio is the original fucking superfan. And, people may not like certain things that he says, but he knows more about... He's worked on Westeros with George. He knows more about Westeros and Game of Thrones than any of us. And yet you have some asshole YouTubers who get butthurt because of their meteor theory just turned out not to... George turned out not to really care or consider it. And all of a sudden, these YouTubers are saying, I know more than Elio. Elio doesn't know anything. It's like... I wanted to ask Elio, does that annoy you? Because, you were into this before anybody else, and now you have people out here saying they know more than you. Like, I understand what...
Well, I seem to remember Elio being a little humble about it, where he's like, look, I don't theorize. Theorizing is not my game.
Well, he can't theorize because he knows the answers. he knows the answers.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, the reason I bring Elio up is because, I wanted to ask him about it because it's like, are you annoyed that people don't even show you an modicum of respect with your knowledge of this? And I feel like George is the same way. He's been doing this for 4 decades now, 5 decades, writing and being involved in TV. The guy wants to have some level of respect thrown at him, and he feels as though Condal wasn't doing that, which is fair. Martin has made something else consistently clear. He believes book adaptations, not just his own, should be as faithful as possible. Martin is childless and has said he considered his characters to be his children. If another writer wants to make major changes to one of his brood, or remove one from a story altogether, he wants to know why, and the reason should make sense. This is reasonable. Knight, showrunner Parker, says he suspects Martin leaning on HBO and showrunners to respect his vision is one reason why these shows have done so well, and that the author has been nothing but a benefit. In my very first meeting with George, before I officially had the job, I promised I wouldn't put anything that he didn't want. But it's never come to that. He's pushed back on a lot of things. I just explained the reason why I want to do something, and then he would explain his reasons why I'm an idiot. I love that. I love it. I love it. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, the difference between Ira Parker and Ryan Condal is essentially, are they caving to George? Is that essentially it? And like Ryan Condal wasn't caving to George enough?
We're about to find out here. It's always been a bit unclear precisely how much authority Martin has over his HBO projects. Sometimes it seems fuzzy to Martin as well. When HBO's Orsi is asked about Martin's level of control, she replies, "We always value his input in terms of the writers we're hiring, the arenas we're tackling for new spin-offs, and developments of each project across the Game of Thrones universe. But building, producing, and running a series is a massive undertaking. I think James meant to say, while we care deeply about George's and our showrunners' perspectives, we ultimately make decisions that make the best show." I asked Martin carefully, I know you can't say much about this, but I was wondering how your relationship with Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal got so rocky. Martin says it's worse than rocky.
Yeah.
Looking miserable, it's abysmal. Without getting into spoilers, Martin's grap about some dispute over changes to his book's character. This makes so much fucking sense to me. I hired Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Ryan and I were partners, and we were all through the first season. I would read early drafts of the script, I would give notes, he would change some things. It was working really well, I thought. When Ryan came to Loggerheads with original Dragon co-showrunner Miguel Sapochnik, Ryan asked for Martin's support in their dispute and got it. Sapochnik left the show after season 1. I heard rumors that one of the reasons Miguel Sapochnik left is because he wanted to make his wife producer, and HBO said no.
Yeah.
I don't know. Apparently this here suggests there was something else involved.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know it's something to do with like, his wife either being producer or wife having a larger role, like acting wise or something. But it's definitely something strange, something fishy. But it never leaked what exactly it was,
right?
Which makes me,
Then we got into season 2, and he basically stopped listening to me. Martin says, I would give notes and nothing would happen. Sometimes he would explain why he wasn't doing it. Other times he would tell me, oh, okay, yeah, I'll think about that. It got worse and worse, and I began to get more and more annoyed. Finally got to a point where I was told by HBO that I should submit all my notes to them, and they would give Ryan our combined notes. So this is something I reported on ages ago, based on George's based on George's author friend Jiran J. Zhao, who in their blog post basically said exactly this before this article came out. That one of the reasons Condal and George were having a falling out is because they were disrespecting him by not listening to him about his own material. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, Ryan Condal is working TV, he's in the thick of it, he knows better. Sure, but also, you are adapting the guy's work. I imagine... Oh,
I mean, in this situation, I'm
on Condal's side?
Sympathetic to both sides. No, I'm sympathetic to both of them. I mean, of course, this is like George's work. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, I understand that Ryan Condal has other masters that he has to appeal to.
Right.
And so, I mean, when the issues were about, this was specifically the issues were about killing children on screen. And like Ryan Condal deciding he didn't want to have a baby torn apart on screen. And shifting around history and such like that.
Well, to be fair, I'm going to be fair to George, and also I'm going to be fair to both sides, but also like eviscerate both sides. George has been in this for 4 or 5 decades. He wants to be shown that respect, and it's also his shit. I get that. But also at the same time, George should also understand, and this is something you've said before, George should understand how the writing process on a television show works. He's worked for television before. However,
he's worked for television before, and he's had higher ups order him to do stuff that he's hated, and he's caved. Mm-hmm. I specifically went into this. I've heard him talk about Beauty and the Beast and the process of Beauty and the Beast. He was showrunner on Beauty and the Beast, and they were dealing with the fact that Linda Hamilton was out of the show because she was having a baby, and they killed her off, And then George wanted to write a whole bunch of episodes where the Beast was just distraught and depressed. And, the producers were like, dude, if you keep doing episodes where he's just depressed and a sad sack, no one's going to want to watch the show if this goes on for an entire year. And George is like, but people mourn for an entire year. And they're like, yeah, but that's not fun to watch.
Right.
And George is like, fine. So he had him get over the death of Beauty faster. And I mean, it didn't help, and the show still sucked, and everyone stopped watching, and it got canceled anyway. But the point is that, like, he specifically told this story of how he had to creatively, like, do something he was very much against, and he caved because because there were powers higher than him, and so he should be he should be sympathetic to Ryan Condal and know that, like, he's trying to please other people. He's not just being like, crazy old man, I'm Ryan Condal, I know better. Like, Ryan Condal is probably dealing with a whole bunch of different executives that he has to please and has to make choices.
Well, that's what I would say about Ryan Condal's defense, is that he's dealing with a bunch of other people, he has other masters, you're right. But also, at the same time, who the fuck told him that Daemon plotline was great? Who the fuck told him to do the Alicent thing? Who the fuck told him to give Helena Bran-like god powers? That was dog shit.
Yeah.
Alicent's story, dog shit. It was a mistake? Oh no, it was all a misunderstanding. Oh no. That was dog shit? Like, who told him to do any of that?
I'm House of the Dragon is dog shit. But I think it would still be. I still think it would be dog shit if it followed Fire and Blood to the T.
All right.
I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that. I know I'm killing you. But the thing is, it's like, I don't think faithfulness to source material is necessarily correlated to quality. Some stuff deviates from the source material massively and is great, and some stuff sticks to the source material and is horrible. So, like, I don't necessarily think that, like faithfulness is interesting, but I don't necessarily think faithfulness is the end all and be all. Like I say, like with our Night of the Seven Kingdoms review, I don't think, even though everyone keeps going around saying, "Oh, Night of the Seven Kingdoms is so faithful," I don't actually think it's that faithful when you're talking about themes. Do I think Night of the Seven Kingdoms was a bad show? No. I actually think it's a good show. My argument is I don't think it's very faithful thematically, but I don't think it's a bad show. Like House of the Dragon, it's not very faithful, but it's also not very good. and I don't know if it would be good if it were faithful. It's like, I'm not, like, do you really? Yeah, I don't know. So
I mean, we've gone on to the House of the Dragon. I'm still kind of excited for season 3. Hopefully they can pick it back up. But according to George R.R. Martin, that might not be true. The article continues. One night in 2024, while the second season was airing, this is untrue actually. George wrote this after it was over. Season 2 was over.
Yeah.
Martin wrote a blog post, Beware the Butterflies, which publicly revealed some of his gripes. When he woke up the next morning, it was as if Martin had unleashed his own Red Wedding. An upset HBO exec had called Martin's manager, who phoned Martin's assistant, who took down the post. But not before entertainment sites, including The Hollywood Reporter, picked up Martin's comments. George says, I would have put it back up, but then I would have looked like an idiot, he says. And 80% of it was praise, but that's not what a lot of people focused on. I don't remember 80% of it being praise.
I don't remember 80% being praise, but okay.
This is
I mean, he looks stupid both ways. I mean, really, he should have. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna write something, keep it up. Like, if you're going to say something, say it.
This is where it gets super spicy. Martin says he can't say anything beyond this, but sources say Martin and Condal's relationship deteriorated further and came to a head during a Zoom call with the show's producers and some HBO executives. I like how the HBO executives, they probably aren't on those Zoom calls normally, but they're just there to, like, make sure everything's okay because George is there after the blog post. The purpose of the call was for Condal to present his vision for Season 3. After Condal spoke, Martin detailed his many objections and allegedly declared, "This is not my story any longer." Condal didn't comment for this profile, but pointed to a statement he gave Entertainment Weekly last year. I made every effort to include George in the adaptation process, I really did, but at some point he just became unwilling to acknowledge the practical issues at hand in a reasonable way. I just have to keep marching forward for the sake of the crew, the cast, and for HBO, because that's my job. I can only hope that George and I can rediscover that harmony someday.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there would be something more in the other 6 blog posts that George planned on writing, but if it was only if it was only what George or like outlined in the butterfly post, it's fucking nitpicking. But it's
yeah, I knew he had more,
you know,
and I've been saying this for like the past.
He must have more.
I've been saying this for over a year. Like, I wanted him to go into more detail. I wanted him to go into more detail about what he didn't like, and except for like Maelor the Missing was just a small part. And according to his friend Jiran Zhao, George had more to say. Maelor the Missing was the least worst thing he said, according to them. So, but according here, after their contentious Zoom call, HBO asked Martin to step back from House of the Dragon altogether. A few months later, the author was brought back on board. However, I can't talk about it, Martin says. So I imagine what he can't talk about is he was brought back on board to have his name, I guess, there, because this is something Dave and Dan did with House of the Dragon. An HBO lawyer reached out to Dave and Dan and said, hey, we would like to put your name on this. And they said no. Yeah. And the lawyer was like, are you sure? It's free money. And Dave and Dan like, we're okay. Okay.
Yeah.
George and Ryan had a
David and Dan are like, we got plenty of money. We got plenty of money.
George and Ryan had a disagreement on the direction of season 3, an HBO insider says. At that point, it was clear the process and communication with them was broken and needed a reset. So there was naturally a period where everyone took a step back for a while until we could figure out a new way forward. Ryan Condal is just going to continue doing what he wants to do. I firmly now believe that Condal wants to put his own spin on things. You're right that he has masters he has to answer to, but also, at the end of the day, HBO just wants a good show to sell more subscriptions. Condal doesn't have to have Daemon at Harrenhal tripping balls for 7 episodes and then ultimately have a White Walker vision. I want to know for a fact if that was a Condal idea to include the worst element of Game of Thrones, or if that was an HBO decision. It seems more like an HBO decision to tie it to Thrones, but why would you want to tie it to a show that ended so badly?
I couldn't imagine some executive being like, what if we have a White Walker vision? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Right, exactly. That makes no sense to me. Why tie it to a show that ended so badly?
I mean, but it's also so specific that it's like, you feel like it has to be somebody that's a big fan. Maybe, I don't know. I know that some executives like Spider-Man 3 had Venom shoved into it because of an executive.
Oh, really?
Like a high level executive was like, Venom's the coolest. Let's put him in. And it's like, isn't this movie crowded? But I mean, on this House of the Dragon thing, look. Fire and Blood is fundamentally at its base a flawed narrative. And I've said this a million times, where the Rogue Prince information is a story about Alicent, Rhaenyra, and Daemon. But then when you get into the Princess and the Queen, and when I say Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen, I'm talking about season 1 and season 2. When you get into Princess and the Queen, Daemon, Alicent, and Rhaenyra disappear as fucking characters, and all these other people become fucking characters, right? All these other, the children and the generals and all of these different people all like become characters. And then Alicent, Daemon, and Rhaenyra kind of come back, but then Daemon dies, and then a whole fuck later, Rhaenyra dies, and then a whole fuck later, Alicent dies. And so, like, if I were structuring a show, I'd be like, I do not know how to, like, tell that story. Like, how do you tell that story where you establish 3 main characters and then they fucking disappear for the whole goddamn war, and then they start dying off at not the end, at, like, big parts in the middle, and then, you're left at the end of the war with Aegon II, you know, like getting poisoned 6 months after Rhaenyra dies. Like, I don't know how to structure that. So, I mean, I get that, like, Ryan Condal had to do something.
He had to do something, and here's the thing, though. But this is why it's such a nuanced conversation. And I know some of the fandom wants to just point at Sarah Hess and try to make her the next Kathleen Kennedy. But here's the problem, is that this is a nuanced conversation. House of the Dragon Season 2 had one of the best episodes ever in the franchise, Episode 2.
Sure.
And all that is completely original with the exception of the last, with Eric and Arik fighting. And then Episode 8 is one of the absolute worst things. It's Season 8 level shit. So...
Right, same writer. Yeah.
It's same writer, right. What the fuck is happening over there?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So, like, you know, I think Fire and Blood, Rogue Prince, Princess and the Queen is fundamentally flawed. I don't think it would ever be a good show. I don't think it can be. I think Ryan Condal did some interesting things, but also had some really fucking bad ideas. And George is angry because it sucks, and he thinks it sucks because it's not what he wrote. But no, sorry, George, what you wrote wouldn't have fucking worked either. So I don't know. House of the Dragon is a big fucking mess.
It is.
So,
it's a massive mess.
Whatever.
But moving on to another controversial thing that we covered. In August, Martin was on an author panel at Worldcon when a fan asked a stunningly rude question. Martin typically enjoys such events. He likes communicating with fellow creatives and meeting fans. And they were taking audience questions when someone asked Martin if he would let another writer finish The Winds of Winter because you're not going to be around for much longer. The audience booed, and Martin felt like he'd been slapped. When he looked online to see the reaction, he was dismayed to find some fans saying he deserved it. They say he lied to us. He's going to die soon. Look at how old he is, Martin says. Even now, months later, the author looks rattled. I really didn't need that shit. Nobody needs that shit. Let me just make this very clear.
So by the way, George doesn't understand the internet because first of all, we were there, not at the event, but we were there for the immediate aftermath. We were there in the discussion. We were there.
We were blamed for this.
We were blamed for the, but let's be honest, 99%, and I'm being literal on that, 99% of the comments are that person was crazy and shouldn't have said that, and that's ridiculous. 1% of the comments might have said George deserved it, where's fucking wins, okay? And yeah, when you read comment sections, yeah, the negative comments stick out, and you remember them. And it takes a lot of positive comments to undo it. And so, like, that's what George is experiencing. It's like that happened, and then he goes on the internet and he breezes by the 99 comments that are like that fucking horrible troll of a fan, and then he sees the one comment. But yeah, where's
So
wins?
I disagree with you on one thing. I don't think it's 99% positive comments. I think it would be like maybe 70-30. 70% positive, 30% mean, because entire subreddits have turned against him. Free Folk used to be like this bastion of like snarky, clever posts. Now it's just constantly shitting.
I just meant like the week after that event.
Sure.
I mean, no, you're right that like now the Reddits and the comment sections are have a lot of negative comments about George, but like at that moment, you know.
Well,
maybe
here's the thing.
But yeah.
Because this is something I have seen a lot recently, and I want to read this one comment from this one idiot who needs to be... I need to call this person out, because I've seen this multiple times. In my comment section, Preston and Red Team are partly responsible for the hate that George R. Martin gets. I don't have sources offhand, but they often make snarky comments against George and do basically nothing to control their communities when they're being very nasty towards George. I just read the comments on basically any video by them, including this one, sometimes even playing into it. Now let the cope begin. I asked this idiot here, people are allowed to voice their frustrations with George. In fact, if you... I know Preston doesn't really care about comments, Preston posts and ghosts. You'll reply to one or two. I reply to a lot of them. If you go to any of those videos, you'll see me disagreeing with people and saying that's not true. When they say that he's a liar, that he's this, and this, you'll see me disagreeing with it. I can't disagree with hundreds of comments because that's not... I can't. But when someone comes into my comment section and they say, George is a liar, it's never coming out, that person is allowed to voice their frustration. If someone comes in and say, I'm going to do physical harm to someone, I always ban and delete that person. But for the most part, a majority of the comments are people being, like, mean, sure, but they're allowed to be. Also, keep in mind that if we start deleting comments en masse, YouTube does take note of that, and they do penalize our channels for that. Because remember, YouTube wants engagement. I know that sounds fucked up to say, but again, you want me to, like, control people's emotions on this topic, and that's not something we can do realistically, or more, like, again, people are allowed to voice their frustrations.
I mean, the most telling thing is, like, I don't have any sources offhand. Oh, so you're making this shit up.
Dude, you have no idea
look,
because again, I mostly covered this, you didn't. You were pretty much hands off with it. You came on with me. But in my comment section when I went into the Worldcon stuff, people were like, when this happened, I thought of you guys immediately. Really? Can you point to one video where we're, like, joking about his death? No one could do it. There was a guy who... No. There's a guy, Zassim or something, in my comments who used AI to go through my videos of the last 5 years and could not find a single instance where we jokingly, like, talk about him dying. It has not happened. The other thing I wanted to say in regards to the person who did this, I'll just read what I tweeted out. The person who did this had a restraining order on them. Because earlier in 2025, before Worldcon even happened, this person went to his theater and kept asking to meet with George to talk about them playing Visenya for the Aegon thing. Yeah. They were asked to leave, and after a while they did under the threat of police coming to remove them. They tried to fight the restraining order.
Yeah, no, the person has some mental problems.
They tried to fight the restraining order by hiring a lawyer using GoFundMe, which nobody cared. And here's the thing, all of this info was provided by that very same person through their YouTube channel, Instagram page. Preston, they were blogging about saying that rude thing to George. I'm quoting them. Yeah, the internet's making a big deal out of it, but it was George was fine with it.
No, well, now we know. I mean, at the time, George nervously laughed and kept a smile on his face.
What can you do?
What can you do? But now we know 100%, like, that it fucking rattled him. That it really hurt his feelings.
I feel bad for Sanderson the most because, like, when that came out, like, poor Sanderson, he has said several times, 1,000 times, that he doesn't want to do it. He's not the guy for it. And he's always praised George. But every time his name gets brought up next to George, Ice and Fire fans shit on him relentlessly. Yeah. I feel bad for him. I feel so fucking bad for him.
So I remember reading, and it's stuck in my head for a long time. But I remember reading an interview with Woody Allen.
Oh boy.
And this is probably 20 years ago. Someone was interviewing him. And they're like, what do you, and he, in this interview, like, Woody Allen just starts, like, talking about how all he can think about is death and blinking out of existence and the void of, like, that he would become after that. And, like, he tries not to, but it's like, it comes into his head all the time. And not that we all haven't had these thoughts, but, like, a lot of George's writing is about that. There's a whole Tyrion chapter in A Dance with Dragons about it too. There's a whole thing in Dying of the Light about being at the edge of the galaxy and looking off in the blackness of the void. There's so many things. I mean, Song for Leah gets into it. George has always had a very real, visceral fear of death. And when people die in his life, it really affects him. He does blog posts about it. He gets depressed for a long period of time. I mean, everybody thinks about death. Everybody's scared of death, but I think George is more sensitive than some to it. And so, yeah, I think somebody telling him to his face at a con, like, you're gonna die. I mean, in so many words. Yeah, it really hurt his feelings, and apparently it really did hurt his feelings. And he's been, I mean, it's been 6 months since that.
Just about, yeah. Well,
four or 5 months. I mean, this interview was at the end of December, right?
Right.
So, yeah, 4 or 5 months, and he's still talking about it.
What's funny about this is that person that yelled that at him, they supposedly are like a huge George R.R. Martin fan, like, which is funny.
I believe they are.
Which is funny because on their own, this is why I thought people were saying like, this person's a fan of yours and Preston. Actually, no. This crazy person had a video about all the Ice and Fire YouTubers they hate. We were on the list. And also how white men need to stop covering A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not their story. And how they hate white people, but then say they're a huge fan of Robert De Niro and George R.R. Martin. Like, I guess George and Robert De Niro are one of the good ones. That's what I thought. Yeah. That's what I thought was fine. Like, this person literally said they hated us. And I feel like I should also correct myself here, because at one point I was frustrated that he wasn't, finishing wins or writing wins. And I was. And again, being frustrated with someone doesn't mean you hate them. That aside, I'm not even frustrated with him anymore over it. It's just, I would rather he would just make a concrete decision. And I know people are going to say, well, he wants to finish it. Yeah, but it doesn't sound like it from the sound of this article, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm not even frustrated with him anymore at this point. Yeah. As just, do what you need to. And maybe that's just me developing some weird laid-back attitude in my ripe, old, young age. But yeah, man, do what you need to.
I'm not even frustrated with George. Like, obviously, I'd love more material.
You're not frustrated because you've given up hope on wins coming out.
No, I mean...
Yes?
No, I'm not frustrated because I understand that life has other things in it and other things that are going on that have nothing to do with a book. Mm-hmm. Like, fair. George has a fucking life. Yeah. And he has people in his life. And those people in his life, have priority. Just like people, like, we all have people in our lives that have priority. And so I'm not frustrated with George. I understand George. Mm-hmm. And like, yes, I would obviously fucking love The Winds of Winter and more Dunk and Egg stories, obviously. But I understand that, like, he has different priorities.
Yeah, no, you and I are on the same page. I've said this several times in the past. Once upon a time, I used to be one of those assholes who would, like, basically say to him, come on, George, finish. But, like, you're right. There are other things in life more important. We've talked about this extensively over the last several years. Clearly, he's been spending a lot of time traveling the world with his wife, and he's enjoying doing that. You love to see it. You love to see it. Martin has recently endured losing a wave of fellow novelists who he counted as close. Friends Howard Waldrop, Gardner Dubois, Victor Milan, John J. Miller, Edward Brandt. Martin lists, they're all gone, one after another. Yeah, man, that's... I can't imagine that. You said something that's still... Every now and then you'll drop some, like, cold shit that will keep me remembering it for a long time. I always bring this up, but I remember a couple years ago you posted on Facebook. It was your birthday, and you said you looked in the mirror and you didn't recognize that guy anymore. That's still, like, It's still in my mind. You said something recently as well where you said, when you're a single guy, your friends are your life. But when you're married and you have family, then your family becomes your, like, yeah, that's true. You know how I am with friendship. Like, I count, like, my friends as, like, yeah. So even though he is married, he doesn't really have kids, so his friends are like his family, and they're going one after another. Right. So I can understand.
I mean, even though he says in the interview, "Oh, my artistic creations are my children," it's like no, it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. Like you real life human beings are who you emotionally get support from. I mean, you can look at your own life. Like the normal life is like you're a kid and your parents are your life and your siblings are your life. And then you start making friends and then your friends are your life. And then you get a romantic interest and your partner is your life. And then you have kids and your kids are your life. Like that's the progression that most of us have. If you don't take that progression, that's fine. But keep in mind, you're going to be somewhere on there. So like you know, if you never have kids, your partner and your friends are still going to be your life. You know? And so when I talk about George's priorities are, you know, his partner and his friends, you know. So, you know, when he loses friends, that's a big deal. And I would say it's probably even a bigger deal than when we lose friends. I mean, well, maybe not for you because you don't have kids, but
Thank you.
but you know, when you move on to the new emotional focus, I was about to say crutch, the new emotional focus, you know, the other emotional focuses kind of go down a little bit. Yeah.
Well, he also lost his idol. He sat down with Robert Redford, we were talking about this earlier, who's fellow executive producer on Dark Winds. Redford came out of acting retirement to film a brief cameo in the show with George. In the scene, the two are sitting at a chessboard, and Redford ad-libbed a line. Oh, he ad-libbed it. Oh, shit, I didn't know that. George, the whole world is waiting. Make a move. It was a meta joke about how long it's taken Martin to finish Winds. Then Redford dies too. His chess scene with Martin, like something out of the Seventh Seal, was his final performance. And Martin says here, it just seems so fucking weird. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's I mean, it's probably how J.D. Vance feels constantly. Like every person he meets dies. So okay. Now here's the money shot. So James Hibbert goes into Storm of Swords being possibly his masterpiece. It's it's spanning more than 1,000 pages. And in regards to and George says, I don't know how I did it. Well, Martin says he's around.
Storm of Swords it's amazing how little time it took. I don't know how he did it.
Martin says he has around 1,100 manuscript pages finished. He's also said a number of. He's also thank you. He's also said that number for a while. He has long blamed the endless distractions.
A while. Four. Has it been 4 or 5 years? 4 years?
I don't know. He's also blamed the distractions that come from shifting from a full-time author to producer and a celebrity. The success of Thrones was both the best thing that could have happened to Martin and the worst thing that could have happened to the greatest story he ever wrote. Today, Martin's work on Winds of Winter at his old house. Martin works on Winter at his old house, which serves as his office. He recently moved his primary residence to another Santa Fe property. Typing away on a DOS computer that's not connected to the internet. Here's what happens when he sits down to write. I'll open the last chapter I was working on and I'll say, oh fuck, this is not very good. I'll go in and rewrite it. Or I'll decide this Tyrion chapter is not coming along. Let me write a Jon Snow chapter. If I'm not interrupted though, what happens, at least in the past, is sooner or later, I do get into it. So this is something I believe Elio did. Fuck, I don't know if Elio said this to me privately or in the interview, it was so long, but Elio, I do believe, and he's probably said this publicly, that George is a perfectionist. And what's keeping him up at night is not only him trying to put himself in a position where after Winds is out, only Dream of Spring is out, but also he's rewriting stuff. Yeah, this lines up with what we discussed with Elio. But the problem is that, and I know people are going to get on my case for this, because I'm going to probably put this in the title, or at least in the thumbnail. Winds of Winter, as far as we know, is done. In the sense where it's right there. 1,100 pages. You have it. Put it out. But what nobody seems to understand, and again, it's that Elio interview from at this point 2 years ago, he's trying to put himself in a position where after Winds is out, only one book is left. The problem is that it can't be done. It's going to have to be an 8th book. So he just keeps going back and reworking this shit to try to get it all in one fucking book. And it's just not working out the way he wants it to. Winds, as far as I'm concerned, is done. 1,000 pages? Great, put it out. Why are you trying to make it the biggest fucking book ever? People from the UK are I'm sure, going to be very upset because now it's 2 books they have to buy. Because wasn't Dance split into 2 books over there in the UK?
It was. So was Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, Storm 2. Wow.
Yeah, I know you say this a lot, or I know that this is what Elio believes and such, but that's just not how George writes. Like George writes, you know, he meanders, and then he just all of a sudden has a big all at once ending. So this idea of like fitting it all in and pacing stuff and getting into a position where he can finish it, like that's not really it. I mean, and if it were, like, he would have more pages. Like, what he's describing is that, yeah, he's being perfectionist. He's going back and rewriting. But I don't think he really has an idea of, like, how to move forward with the story. Like, I'm just thinking of, like, the different places he was stuck in A Dance with Dragons for many years. With the Jon story and the Tyrion story, the Dany story. He was stuck. He had 3 major sticking points with that book. And he couldn't figure out how to move those plots forward. It wasn't about cramming everything in and rewriting it so it's all crammed in. It was just like there was just like specific plot points where he just didn't know how to get to the next place. So he created new points of view and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's I think it sounds more like, yeah, he just starts wordsmithing and then he just doesn't like it. And then he wordsmiths some more. And that's where you get beautiful, beautiful, horrible chapters like Tyrion 7, A Dance with Dragons, where Tyrion is walking around Volantis. It's an incredibly beautiful chapter. And it's also just a useless thing.
Well, actually, that falls in line with what he says here. The article continues, when the pandemic hit, Martin tried going to a literal cabin in the woods to finish winter. That was a prolific stretch, he said, resulting in many new chapters, but it took him away from his longtime partner, Paris McBride. Even Martin's forced isolation effort ran into creative troubles. I wrote a Tyrion chapter I just loved, he recalls. Then I looked at it and said, I can't do this. It will change the whole book. I will make this into a series of dreams. No, that doesn't work either.
And by the way, if you really, I think that paragraph right there that you just read is the most important paragraph in the entire article.
Oh?
What was I saying? Like, when I talk about George has different priorities, this is what people are asking George to do. Okay. The only way he can write is if he isolates himself from the most important person in the world to him.
Could you do that? You're married. Could you do that?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving my wife.
Not even for like a week or two to finish the Winds of Fanfic?
I mean, it's like, it's also a little different in that, like...
No, I get you. I'm just...
How many more decades do I have with my wife?
Understandable.
Okay. So when it comes down to it, in order for George to finish The Winds of Winter, he needs to isolate himself away from all of the people, his friends and family, his partner, in order to finish it. And
well, here's the thing, though.
How much time left,
does he have?
Does a 77-year-old man have with
his wife,
and other people that he loves and cares about? And so when we say, like, he needs to, like, sit down and fucking write it, like, well, that's what we're asking him to do. We're asking him to take his, like, the little time he has left with, like, all the people he loves and cares about and, like, set it aside.
That's actually a great way to look at it. And you're absolutely right. This is why, by the way, this is why I like having you on with me. And I didn't want to do this video without your insight, because you usually have a great perspective that I don't really consider. But yeah, you're right. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I usually drift through life as kind of a loner, kind of. Always have. The only family member I have within a 5,000-mile radius of me is my mom, and I haven't been able to see her in more than 5 years. I won't go into detail why, but yeah, I can understand that if I was going through such bullshit day after day like he does, and all my friends are passing, and all this pressure and whatnot, I would certainly want someone close to me to be there constantly. Whether it be my mom or significant other or, whatever else. Fortunately, that isn't my reality yet. But no, you're right. You're 100% right. James Hibbert goes into here, goes, I asked Martin if he's ever considered simply giving up on the book. It's your life, George, I say. You don't have to spend it working on something if you find it so torturous. I would hate that, Martin says. It feels like it would feel like a total failure to me. I want to finish. This is something I've always said. Handing the project to another writer, which some fans have lobbied for him to do, isn't going to happen, Martin says. There's also no secret contingency plan for someone else to take it over if Martin gets struck by lightning. If that happens, my work won't be finished, he says. It'll be like The Mystery of Edwin Drood, referring to Charles Dickens's unfinished final novel. So the one thing I've always said is, look, I would love for him to delegate someone to do it while he oversees it, right? Yeah. If he doesn't want to write anymore. But here's the thing. If he also doesn't want to do that, I'm also fine. If he wants to just say, that's it, I can't do it anymore, Dance is the last book, I would be fine with that too. I guess my frustration comes from him just not making a decision. And I guess he has made a decision that he wants to finish, but also, I guess my frustration is not that Wins is done, is that I want him to just come out and say, I don't want to do it anymore. In this article, he kind of does say that. So, yeah. How much further does he have to go? Martin is vague. If I wind up doing everything in my head, this could be the longest book in the series. After asking Martin repeatedly about Wins, seeming more than he'd like, the author did what he does best. He tells a story. In 1975, Martin met Dune author Frank Herbert at a book convention and they shared a drink. The meeting was near the end of Herbert's life. Martin says, Herbert had written many acclaimed novels, but all fans seemed to want was more Dune. Herbert's publisher had just offered him a modest advance for a story he wanted to write, or 6 times that number for another Dune novel. He didn't like Dune anymore, and he didn't want to write any more Dune books, Martin says. But he felt locked in by the success of Dune, so he kept writing them. Martin finishes and waits. I asked, do you relate to how Herbert felt? I'm not necessarily tired of doing the world of Ice and Fire, he says. I love the world and world building, but yes, I do. And here, for the future of the books, it becomes clear that the details of the story's conclusion, like so many of the saga, remains uncertain. I was going to kill more people, he muses, not the ones they killed in the show. They made it more of a happy ending. I don't see a happy ending for Tyrion. His whole arc has been tragic from the first. I was going to have Sansa die, but she's been so appealing in the show, maybe I'll let her live. You know what's funny? This is not the first time he's looked on the show's actors and actresses and praised the fuck out of them and changed how he does things. Right.
OSHA being the big thing, yeah.
But
I mean, it's the lack of a happy ending for Tyrion. I mean, obviously it's not that surprising because George fucking doesn't really like happy endings. And it is true that like Tyrion's ending in the show is like outrageously happy for him. But it is different from the show. Which is surprising, you know, like, cause like right now we're like, oh, is the show just like hitting all the plot points? The killing of Sansa though, I mean,
that came out of nowhere. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, Sansa was originally a villain, and during his first outline, George said that there would be 5 characters that would go through the whole story, and that was Jon, Arya, Bran,
and
Tyrion, and Dany. Right.
Oh, no.
And Hot Pie. Yeah, Hot Pie, Nimbledick,
Shitmouth.
Obara Sand.
Ugh.
And Dywin. Dywin, yeah. Anyway.
Hodgepodge of random ass characters. Go ahead.
Obara Sand, Dywin, Hot Pie, Pretty Maris, and Armin the Acolyte. Okay, so like anyway, it's fucking crazy. They were the ones that were gonna make it to the end.
Crazy.
Crazy. It was Jon, Bran, Arya, Dany, Tyrion. But notably, Sansa is not on that list. Well, one, because Sansa was not originally a POV character, but like also she was originally supposed to be a villain and all these things. But he never really had a place for Sansa. Sansa is a character he's writing as he goes, which is probably why Sansa's story just keeps getting better and better, because it's just, you don't know where it's going.
But killing off Sansa, god damn.
I know, right?
Which is funny because Sophie Turner the other day literally said she was very happy with her character's ending. Like, she's probably the only person who's very happy with her character's ending. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So, and Sophie Turner pretty much saved her character in the books. Her performance was so good. So that's a plus. Yeah, but wow, Sansa.
Well, I mean, save the character. The last Sansa chapter, even the Elaine Winds of Winter chapter was written before Game of Thrones premiered.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder how that'll change. Then I wonder how Sophie Turner as Sansa will change his perspective on the character.
Yeah.
To wrap this up, his assistant's car is coming. I ask what he's doing for Christmas. And this is depressing. I don't know, Martin says. I think I'll just stay home. I have to write more Dunk and Egg. There's supposed to be another Fire and Blood book, too. I do think if I can get some of these other things off my back, I could finish The Winds of Winter pretty soon. It's been made clear to me that Winds is priority, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for that. I'm so far behind on everything, he sighs. Great article. It's the article really... It sucks to read, but I think it's the article that we all needed. A lot of the stuff we did know. I personally believe that Winds is pretty much done. Just put out what you have, and that's it. Focus about shit later.
It doesn't make any sense, Carmine. It doesn't make any sense. You can't have a book that's filled with a bunch of battles and action and trials by combat at the beginning, and then meanders into nothing. Okay, you can't like that. You can't have that.
Yeah, you can. I believe. I believe you can have whatever you want. And he wants to finish Dunk and Egg stories. Sure, go for it. He wants to do a Blood and Fire. Elio and Linda are available to help him do that.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
We'll see, man. We'll see. And I've also come to some type of understanding on Winds coming out, because even if it does, I don't think it'll be the book everyone is expecting or everyone would be wanting. George is a vastly different person today than he was 15 years ago when Dance came out. So even if he puts out Winds today, it's going to read like a different person wrote it regardless. Because he's not in the same place anymore. He's in a different headspace. He's been through things. He's seen life in a different way.
It's all true.
So what Winds of Winter was in 2010 is not the same Winds that'll come out today if it came out today. So that's why I've always said that, yeah, like if he gets someone to do it for him with him overseeing, like I think that would be also fine. Yes, I know he doesn't want to do it. Shut up. But what I'm saying is, it's going to be different. It's going to be almost like a different person writing it regardless, even if it is the same person.
Well, I mean, a Game of Thrones is like a different person compared to A Dance with Dragons.
Exactly.
They're very different. They're very different writing styles.
Like you and I have the privilege, and the audience also has the privilege of knowing us for 10 years.
Yeah. And
I ask you this because next year is our 10-year collab anniversary, Preston. Oh my God, I'm excited.
Nice.
We God, Jesus Christ. We some things we got to do for that shit. But let me ask you this. You've known me for 10 years now. Am I a different person now that I was back then?
Oh yeah.
Don't ask me.
Completely.
Don't ask me that question about you. I'm kidding. No, you are also a different person. We all are. I feel bad for the person who's still the same guy they were like 10 years ago. And he's
right. And granted, people grow and change less as they get older, but still, 15 years is 15 fucking years. You know, still a long fucking time.
You're right. 15 years is a very long time. 12 of which you and I have been covering this stuff on YouTube. We were one of the first. And to sit here to go through this article, I don't know, it feels a bit weird. My life has completely changed covering this guy's work, and because of it all, the things I've been able to do, all the amazing people I've met, I mean, I'm eternally grateful. You know, I know it bothers you when people say you hate George. You don't. You know, it annoys me like when these idiots are like, you want him to die? I don't. You know? Yeah, because of George, again, I want to put emphasis on this, because I'm a bit more social than you are, kind of. Like all the people who reach out to me, who I've known for literal years, yeah, this is all these friends that I've made. I don't know. It's because of George. So I will always be eternally grateful. And I know you. Preston, I've kept you on for too long. Do you mind if we wrap it up here?
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.